Welcome to the Fermented Homestead. If you're new here, my name is Anna, and on this channel, I'm sharing our journey of learning how to turn our home into a homestead. Yesterday, my husband and I butchered the last round of our meat burrs, and so today I have to figure out how to make a little bit more room in the freezer. One of the ways that we came up with to make room in the freezer is to actually dehydrate a bunch of the frozen veg that we have in there. We have some corn and we have some peas in there. My husband enjoys the dehydrated stuff just as much as the fresh stuff because all he typically does with it is throws it into a soup and lets it long cook and all that sorts of stuff. So it's just as good either way. And so we may as well clear up some room in the freezer. I mean, this is, three, maybe all three of these bags, they're Costco bags. They probably equal about the space of maybe 4 birds, probably. So we're gonna go ahead and get cracking on that. And one of the reasons that I'm super stoked to actually do this is because we just recently purchased finally an Excalibur. We have had several of the Nesco typical circular dehydrators and had some luck with it, but not a whole lot. We decided to go with the Excalibur just because, it has such a good name to it and it has such a good reputation and it's supposed to work so well. But another of the reasons that I wanted to get the Excalibur is because you can take the trays out and you can do, taller items if you want to. I know I see a lot, Needy Homesteader, like she puts in marshmallows. I don't have marshmallows to dehydrate, but if I ever wanted to dehydrate marshmallows, I totally could. So, and then another reason that I really like this is that I can take all of them out and I can use this as like a fermentation chamber. I can use it to make like sourdough starter. I can use it to make, what was the one I was thinking? Yogurt, sour cream, things like that. I can put in there and just kind of let the heat run at a very low heat, whatever, 95 degrees or whatever it may be. Hopefully it will be a good investment in the long term. The Presto ones, or not Presto was the canner. The Nesco ones, they kind of worked. I didn't have a tremendous amount of luck with them. I had one of them actually burnt out, and by burnt out, I meant like burned out, and it like scorched several of the trays that were inside the food and the actual plastic trays. They like shrunk. And it really freaked me out because I was like, oh my gosh, if this thing, if I hadn't been paying attention, this thing could have like burned my whole house down. It was quite terrifying, especially because we had it at the time, we had it behind the couch, not thinking anything of it. There's plenty of room. There's lots of airspace. There was like, I think we had the couch pulled like 2 feet back from the wall. Like it wasn't a crowding issue. It had plenty of ventilation. It was fine with that. And then we had we've had 2 of them burn out. One was like really bad, one just stopped working. And then also the trays, like it would take a tremendous amount of longer time for them to dehydrate than any recipe I ever came across said it would take. Like it would say it takes 8 hours, it would take me like 24 hours to dehydrate it. And I didn't like it. So it didn't work very well. With the garden that we have going right now, if you haven't seen that, I will go ahead and link that video up there for you, my latest tour that I have. And so with the garden that we have, we're going to be doing a lot of dehydrating, a lot of canning, a lot of preserving in general. So we just wanted to make sure that we had enough dehydrator space to actually accomplish that. And these also have just a lot more space on them and they're a lot more user-friendly. So anyways, back to the point here. We are going to go ahead and dehydrate corn and peas. I'm going to show you how completely easy it is, hopefully, with this new dehydrator to actually dehydrate the corn and the peas. I don't know how many trays this is going to take. These are Costco packs. The corn is 5 pounds, so we got 10 pounds of corn, and the same thing with the peas, and so we have 5 pounds of peas. Come on. Okay, so we're going to figure this out because I really don't know what I'm doing. I've never done this before. My husband has. He dehydrated a couple smaller bags, and that's how he figured out that he liked them. And they're just really nice to have on hand. They're super handy. I did a little bit of looking into it, and from what I see, you do not need to dehydrate these or to just thaw these out before you put them into the dehydrator. Basically, some people just do it normally. And one lady that I saw on a blog, she said that she turns the heat up to 145 degrees for 2 hours and then turns it back down to the normal temperature. So I think that's what I'm gonna end up doing. And basically the idea behind that is to just kind of burn up a lot of the liquid and the moisture that's gonna be in there, the humidity that's gonna be in there, kind of burns it up a little bit and then lets it go ahead and do its thing. So how am I gonna do this? There's one thing that the Presto has over this is that it has edges on it, the Presto dehydrator. So it's a little easier to dehydrate things like this. Whereas this one, it doesn't have any edges. So. I don't know if I'm supposed to do it single layer or not, but we're gonna play it safe. And assuming that we have enough trays for this, we're gonna do it single layered. Some of these are just like clumps, so I'm just breaking them up. I'm not being perfect about it, because these are going to shrink quite a bit in here, so I'm not terribly concerned. Let's do it. Okay, so if I had my last little insert, I definitely could make this work and fit them all in there. There's about 1 tray's worth left. I'm packing them pretty densely. So, you know, if you have the time to do 2 separate loads, you could totally do it twice, or you could totally do it with a lighter amount of stuff on there. So all I'm gonna do with this is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna move it back to the dehydrator table before I turn it on. But I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put it in for 145 for 2 hours. And then once that 2 hours has passed, I'm gonna go ahead and lower it down to, I think it was like 120, 125, something like that, and just let it go until it's done. It's been a couple days since we actually put the corn and the peas on the dehydrator, and I have already jarred up, I think it was 3 trays worth of the corn that was ready before the rest of them. One thing that I want to go ahead and mention, when I was first doing this, I didn't think it would be a big deal to go ahead and pile it up on the tray. That was stupid. Make it a single layer. It made everything so much more difficult. It made everything you wouldn't think, like, because it all did shrink. Let me show you what it looks like in here. I mean, it shrinks pretty considerably. I mean, this thing was packed. It was really, really thick, really dense on here. And so it shrinks down, and that was my original thinking. That original thinking was very wrong. So in the future, I will definitely be just doing patting it down and just taking the extra time, do an extra load if I have to later on. It's totally worth it, because it was really frustrating. And some of these, especially these corn up here, these particular 2 trays of corn, it was really frustrating to get it, because it would be like most of it was completely dry, but then like there'd be like a couple little spots on here that were still wet, and so it was made for a very frustrating experience. It would have all been done very, very quickly if I had not stacked it up so high. So now that they're all completely dry, and you'll be able to tell, like, I mean, if you can hear this, you can just tell, like, it sounds hollow, it sounds empty, it sounds dry. Oops. it like, you'll be able to tell. You really will. I mean, trust your instincts, you'll be able to tell. And sometimes there'll be a couple little icky pieces, and just pull those out. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is just go ahead. It's really convenient if you have a big giant bowl or a pot or something like that. I find it to be unspeakably helpful to put these in a bowl. It was much easier when I had this, well, I don't know if it was much easier, but it was pretty darn easy when I had the circular dehydrator. Still trying to figure this thing out. that seems to be kind of the trick with that. If you have a dehydrator, if you have an Excalibur and it just jumps right off, like you kind of just take the edge and kind of peel it up like this, and then you dump it towards that, and it'll kind of guide it in like a funnel. These dehydrator foods are what I normally use for like weird old jars. Like we save our spaghetti jars. My husband really enjoys spaghetti sauce, and so we end up getting a lot from Costco, and we have all these leftover jars. And we have these ones. These are like, I think it's the like Bertolli brand or something. But there's the Bertolli brand, and then there's the Classico. We always get the organic. The Classico ones are the ones that we like because they come with an actual canning jar. So these are what we're going to go ahead and put the dehydrator in, because they might not be quite as safe and secure. So I like to use these type of jars for dehydrating, just because they don't have to be as strong. Oh, come on, no. Just barely. Oh, exactly. So 5 pounds of peas fits in 1 quart-sized jar. So I can't actually find what I was looking for, but what I'm gonna do once I find them, I'm just gonna open this back up and put what is called like a dry pack, and that is just like, it's a little pack of like, I don't know, little gel balls or something that you put in there, and it helps to just absorb the moisture, any moisture that might be left in there, or just anything along those lines. Shoot. 5 pounds doesn't fit in here. Okay, so anyways, we're just gonna go ahead, and once I find the dry packs, I'm gonna put one of those in there just to absorb any moisture that might be in there, or to protect it kind of long term from moisture, because moisture when you're dehydrating foods is the enemy. It is what causes food spoilage, and it's bad. So let's do this last one. Gosh darn it. This is what 5 pounds of peas dehydrated looks like on your pantry shelf. All right, so let's finish off the rest of this corn. So here are 15 pounds of dehydrated foods, and it's 15 pounds of those giant bags of corn and peas that are no longer taking up space in my freezer. And I was able to actually replace it with probably about 4 chickens worth. And so I think that this is definitely something that is well worth doing. And in order to actually rehydrate this, the way that we use it, or the way that most of my husband uses these, is he just throws them into his soups or stews that he makes. We have a bunch of different dehydrated foods, and kind of during the winter, like he'll just take a can of can of the canned up like stock or broth that we have in the pantry, and I'll just take that and he'll just throw in a bunch of different ingredients. He'll throw in like some canned beef, and he just throws it in and kind of lets it stew, and then he has like a nice warm hearty stew. We have like potatoes and onions and corn and peas and carrots and all sorts of different things that are canned or dehydrated. He just throws them in there, and then at the end of the day, it doesn't really take the whole day, but it takes probably about 20 minutes really to get them fully dehydrated. He just lets it stew because it's a stew. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something from it. I hope you maybe got some ideas of things in your freezer that you can dehydrate to save space in there, and different things that you can just put on your pantry shelf as opposed to taking up space in your freezer. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time. Bye.